Hey everyone, Bill Parish here with GTT Audio, and welcome to the channel today. Today we're going to have a special guest, a good friend of mine, and someone who's truly defined as the man, the myth, the legend of the industry. No other than Dick Diamond of YG Acoustics. Dick is a guy that, talk about a road warrior. Over 200,000 miles last year in the air. Covers all of Asia for YG Acoustics, covers a lot of the US, he covers me, and anyway, let's get to it, let's get in and let's say hi to Dick. And here he is, everyone, Dick Diamond, the man I just introduced, the Director of Sales and Marketing over at YG Acoustics, and in my opinion, the guy that makes YG go. He's outside of Yoav Geva, he's the employee that's been with YG the longest. How long's it been, Dick?
It's been over 12 years.
12 years. Well, so a year before me. I came on board 11 years ago. So in 2009,
if you recall. I remember that day.
You remember that day?
I sure do. Vividly etched in my mind. Sitting in a hotel room on a business trip, I get a call from you. And it's never been the same since, fortunately.
We've had a lot of fun. Hey, Dick, I wanted to bring you in here, and I wanted you to go down the key technologies that YG Acoustics offers in their speakers and really explain what makes YG stand out and different than any other speaker manufacturer.
Well, thank you. This is the thing that makes us stand out. Absolutely. And like you mentioned, we call them our key technologies. And if it's okay, I'll give you a chronological timeline on each of these technologies, and I won't bore people, I hope.
No, I mean, if I recall correctly, and YG so near and dear, hopefully I do, but I believe there's 8 key technologies at this point.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, why don't you give us a rundown and a little explanation of them?
I'd love to. So the technology, the first one that put us on the map, and this was, I think we could credit this in 2002, the beginning of our company, is our dual coherent technology. What dual coherent is, essentially is the crossover of the speaker. Perhaps a little more, but what it is it's a software program that Yoav Geva, he's the YG of YG Acoustics, created. He literally, created his own algorithm and wrote a program because all of the products that were available to speaker designers, in other words, speaker designers use computer programs to assist them in their math and building speakers. And he created this program that was the only program that allowed you to nail both amplitude response or frequency response and phase at the same time. The programs of the day and the programs of today, frankly, you really have to optimize for one and compromise the other. So frequency response and phase.
So dual coherent is exclusive to YG. I mean, it's not a first order crossover. I know it's closest to a fourth order, but it's not a fourth order, second or third, or a Linkwitz Riley or a Butterworth. It is exactly. A YG Acoustics crossover.
You're correct. I mean, the rate of roll off is somewhere between third and fourth order. But as you mentioned, it's got its own shape to the slope. It's not a Butterworth or a Bessel or a Linkwitz Riley or a Chebyshev or those that you mentioned. So this is the heart and soul of our speaker, is the dual coherent crossover. And if there's one reason for being for YG Acoustics, it's this.
So what's next up on the key technologies, Dick?
The next technology that followed close on the heels of dual coherent which was in 2004, is our cabinet technology. Now, we don't have a love affair with metal. That's not why our speakers are made of metal, and everyone knows we're the company whose speakers are made of metal. But it was simply the material that had the least incident of resonance. in practicality, when you're making speaker enclosures, the length and side panels and front and back baffles. When we created speakers with those dimensions and sizes, this aircraft-grade alloy was simply the most rigid and had the least amount of resonance.
Awesome. Well, what's the next one up?
The next one is one that we didn't name till a bit later, but it came out in about 2007, and we call it focused elimination. This one's a little bit more difficult to understand. It's basically it's focusing on any resonance that could take place in an enclosure and focusing on those areas without any mechanical loss. Mechanical loss is an interesting thing that all speakers suffer. And if you have mechanical loss, you lose fine, small, and important details in the music.
And things that cause mechanical losses are like stuffing that some manufacturers use, correct?
Absolutely. Stuffing. A lot of people like to say that a driver in free air would have the least amount of mechanical loss. There's nothing behind it, nothing in front of it. But when a driver is placed in our enclosure, which does not have any stuffing, it actually has less mechanical loss than that driver does in free air. And this is done by very special geometries inside of the enclosure, special technologies that take care of any residual resonance, and actually taking care of resonance on the inside panels of the enclosure as well.
Awesome. And then I know Yoav developed Toro Air.
That's right. Toro Air came about in 2010, and this is one of those "Are you nuts, Mr. Geba?" type products. As you know, when your amplifiers and preamps, if you take the lid off, a lot of those products have a transformer in them that is round, kind of like a donut, and the wire is wrapped from inside out around that donut. Well, we created inductors, crossover-sized inductors, obviously much smaller than your transformer, that are actually toroids or toroidal wound. Naturally, we have to do this in-house because we can't buy them from anyone. And what Toro Air does, it mainly benefits those mid and high frequencies. And it keeps this crosstalk is not the right word, but interference from other parts of the crossover from influencing particularly those high frequencies.
Yeah, it sort of prevents the blurring, and you get more focus because the tweeter does not see the mid-range and vice versa.
That's right. Like a toroidal transformer, they don't emit as much noise, and they reject as well external noise.
Yeah. No, I think that was a really cool development, and I still don't know anyone else out there using anything like that in their crossovers. If they are, they certainly aren't talking about it.
That's correct, yeah.
What's next?
Our next technology, which came out in 2011, was another, are you kidding me? You're going to do this technology? It's called billet core. And it's our speaker cones, our drivers, and this is pretty well known. This billet core idea is crazy. Other companies make metal drivers. So metal driver isn't unique. But the way they make their drivers is you take a sheet of aluminum or whatever material and you pound that sucker in shape until it looks like a cone. Or, I don't know, I guess you could cast it or whatever. But the problem, first of all, the problem with stamping, one of these cones, which is the common procedure, is you stress that material.
Yes.
That material on an atomic level has been stressed, and I guess we could call it in a sort of microscopic way, microcracks develop in the material. Our cones have never been stressed. We take a solid block of aluminum and literally carve it into the shape of a cone. Now, of course, our very sophisticated CNC machinery mills it into the shape of a cone. On the back side of the cone, we can machine ribs into it so we can keep the material thin, but the ribs that are machined in make it super, super strong. There's never been a stiffer, more rigid driver that also is amongst the lightest weight drivers.
Well, what I also love is that little micro groove that you put at the back of it, where the voice coil can actually insert right in there.
Yeah.
So it makes a really good connection rather than just sitting on top of the voice coil when they go and do that glue joint. And that's one of the reasons nearly all YG drivers are matched.
That's true. The tolerances are, well, when you use the kind of CNC milling equipment that we use, the tolerances are just so precise. Within a gnat's eyelash, to use that cliche.
Yeah. What's the next one up?
The next one was it's called Forge Core. And it was, Forge Core came out in 2011, just after we developed Billet Core. And what Forge Core did was reduce distortion in a tweeter. It was Yoav's goal to reduce the distortion in our existing tweeters, which use a silk dome, a man-made silk dome, and a very good structure. We've borrowed the magnet system from the ScanSpeak Illuminator series. But Yoav thought to himself, there is a way to reduce distortion even further in this tweeter. In my mind, do we really need to? And he said, yeah,
I remember thinking that tweeter was perfect to begin with, yeah.
And what he does is you take the inside of the tweeter apart, the guts, the motor system, essentially, and we machine some very unique shapes developed through 3D CAD programming. And when we put this back together, these holes and these shapes and these geometries reduce that internal, they improve airflow and prevent internal standing waves and give the tweeter less distortion, measurably less distortion.
Awesome. And then, so there's two left, the latest two, that were, both of them were introduced when Yoav designed the XV loudspeaker, the flagship statement product. So these started in that statement product, and as of right now, I know they've trickled down to at least into the Haleys.
That's right.
Yeah. So give us one of them.
The first one of that series to come out was something that we call Weiss Coil. That's VISECOIL, as in hold it in a vice, not vice cock, but like a vice grip. What this is, I'll try to be brief, but it's a funny story. I was in Korea a number of years ago, and we were preparing for a big event. And one of the salespeople of the distributor that we used in Korea at the time came to me and he said, "Dick, the speaker's making noise." I said, "Okay, play it." I couldn't hear the noise. He said, "Come around behind the speaker and I'll play some heavy bass material and see if you can hear a noise." And I said, "Yeah, I think I can." He then pulled the back off of the speaker, and sure enough, every time there was a bass hit in the music, I heard this bah, bah, this buzzing sound. I'm like, I'm who knows how many thousands of miles away thinking, how am I going to solve this problem? So we looked inside, and the crossover, which has some very large inductors on it and large capacitors, because our crossovers are at 65 hertz for the bass. So some very large devices are needed and used. Well, this inductor had bent during shipping, and it was sitting cockeye on the circuit board. And as a result, if you've ever seen an EI core transformer, or in this case, inductor, they're big square-looking things, and they have layers of iron in them. This thing, because it had bent, the mounts, the L-shaped mounts that mounted on the circuit board, had bent, and it had separated some of these iron layers. And every time it received a strong current-based signal, like a bass hit, it would buzz. So I'm hunting around on the floor, somewhat dirty, fortunately. I find pieces of wood and business cards, and I'm cramming it in these layers to see if I can stop the buzz. Well, I stopped the buzz for the most part, but that was a jerry rig to be sure.
Yeah, let's be clear. YG's not held together with bubble gum and, and rubber
And duct
bands.
tape, right.
wood shims when we yeah, the tolerances are a little too tight for that.
So I picked up the phone and called Mr. Geva on the phone. I probably woke him up out of a deep sleep. And I said, Houston, we have a problem. And Yoav says, I don't know what to tell you, but it sounds like your solution for the short run will get them up and going. And but this got the wheels turning. And when Yoav Geva starts thinking about something, look out.
Yeah.
He says, I'm going to remake the EI core inductor. This came a number of months later. And he says, I'm going to remake this sucker. And he found a way to put in a vise those iron layers. And no more of this flimsy L bracket stuff that mounted the inductor to the circuit board. We used big machine, pieces of aluminum. So this thing was not going to bend. It was during shipping. It was not going to. If there's a shipping issue, it's going to rip the whole thing apart. I mean, this is not going to bend. But to our amazement, Bill, we found that the inductive linearity of this device was better. Not only did it not go bad due to shipping, but the inductive linearity, which we never questioned really.
Well, I remember instantly hearing the difference.
That leading edge attack and that snap was better.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I remember when the XVs came out and you guys made a short little video showing older inductors versus the Weiss Coil and the differences in that. And what I'll do is I'll take that video and I'll link it below so those that are interested can watch that. And if you do watch that, have your sound on because you can definitely hear the differences. And that's what they're trying to show you there, that buzz and how quiet Weiss Coil is. All right, Dick, there's one.
That particular video is very amateurish.
It's very amateurish,
like
but it gets the point across, and it's good enough. It's good enough.
There.
Now, the last one, you also did a video, which is quite a bit more professional, and for this last technology, and I'll also link that below. So, viewers, there's a couple of links below that you should definitely check out, both on Weiss Coil and Dick, Billet Dome?
Billet Dome. This is the most complicated mechanical invention of Yoav Geva's to date. This was one of those things where he explained to me what he wanted to do, and I thought to myself, good luck. I mean, I don't know how you're going to pull this off. But we recognize that there's two basic good tweeter types in the world today. One is a soft dome, the other is a hard dome. Soft dome tweeters generally have that nicer sound, the smoother sound to them. But the problem with a soft dome tweeter is they can't accelerate quite as rapidly as a hard dome does. So you may, in some instances, get roll-offs in the high frequencies. Now, the problem with the hard dome tweeter is, yes, they accelerate quicker. They handle more G-forces, believe it or not. There are G-forces involved. But they have this terrible high-frequency ring just above the audible band, which affects the audible band. You have issues with phase, not to mention the delivery of a harsh, oftentimes metallic sound that makes a hard dome tweeter oftentimes hard to listen to and hard to blend with the driver below it. So how do we solve this problem? Do we take a hard dome and put a soft dome over the top? In that case, all you have is a heavy tweeter. So that doesn't accomplish it. So we want the self-damping of a soft dome, but we want the acceleration of a hard dome. So Yoav Geva came up with this crazy idea that he would put a frame beneath the soft dome. We refer to it as an airframe. He saw a similar sort of skeletal structure in the aircraft industry, and they had been calling this thing an airframe. This is, of course, on a very large scale. And he thought to himself, I can pull this off. So anyway, he created these little frames. Think of a pop-up tent. The tent on the outside is a soft material, but you've got these frames, these poles on the inside that pop the tent up. And the hard part, though, is creating this frame, this airframe, in a manner that would actually work. First of all, the airframe had to be almost no mass. I mean, so light that it almost doesn't count. And it has to be strong so that it can withstand a lifetime. It can withstand, things that would cause it to break down over time. And sure enough, he tried various versions, an airframe with 3 legs and 4 legs and triangles in the top and diamonds in the top and ovals and circles and squares. And finally, this one version that he tried was just magic. But it was absolutely linear, flat as a board, the frequency response, extending clear out to 40 kilohertz with no issue.
I know
I
it took him a very, very, very long time.
Yes, it really did, and he pulled it off. And I was once again amazed.
Well, there you go.
And how does the billet dome sound, Bill? You'd be a great judge of that.
You don't even hear it. I mean, it just sounds. It's just so natural. I mean, piccolo sounds like a piccolo, and a violin string sounds like a violin. It is. You and I, we were wondering if he was going to be able to pull this off, and I remember talking to you about this, and it's like, how could he possibly improve on the tweeter that was already in the speakers? And
my thoughts exactly.
I know, I mean, I've, 11 years with YG. I know it's, the development process quite a bit. And I would say that this was absolutely the hardest thing and the longest that Yoav ever worked on anything. I mean, it's, yeah. But you hear it, and that, YG's so amazing. It's so 8 key technologies and 10 different speaker models, but there's 4 lines. So like within the 4 lines, you've got the Sonya line. Sonya's XV, XV Junior, 2.3, 2.2, and 2.1. So 5 different models in the Sonya line for 2-channel listening. I know you do subs, and I know you do center channels and surrounds and things like that. But then there's the Haley, that's 2 different models. And in the Sonya and the Haley line, your 2 top lines, all the key technologies are in there. Correct?
Right. That's correct.
In the Vantage. Vantage, I know, did not get the billet dome because it's just so expensive and hard to manufacture. But they are using Weiss Coil, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Vantage has
all technologies minus billet dome, and then Carmel. You don't need the base technology in Carmel.
Yeah. It's a 2-way, so it wouldn't be used.
Yeah. But so it's missing 2 of the technologies, but 1 isn't even relevant. But and that little Carmel, while it may be YG's entry, it's not an entry level speaker. It's a reference level 2-way is what it is. Yeah.
It has been so popular as of late in Asia. The numbers that they're purchasing of the Carmel over there surprised me. It's been a great thing.
Well, listen, Dick, I wanted to thank. I mean, I know, we're going through a tough time here with this pandemic, and we wanted to. I know you're at home. We're at home. We have stay-at-home orders here. I know you work remotely for YG out of Utah, out of Salt Lake. Do you have stay-at-home orders out there?
It's not an official order, but it's strongly suggested by the governor.
Yeah, well,
So
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's going on everywhere. You're not as bad off as New York
Uh,
City and New Jersey, where I am,
New
but
Jersey.
still, it's serious. But what we wanted to do is at least be away. You're traveling 200,000 miles a year. I would never be able to catch you for a half hour on the phone, and this is a way to connect with
Sure.
everyone. So I really appreciate it, and you talking to my subscribers and my clients, and I truly appreciate this. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, Bill, thank you. It's always such a pleasure. I wish I could be there with you,
Yeah,
but this
that's
is the
always
next
fun.
best thing.
Well, we'll
Thanks
get
so
the
much.
we'll figure that out as soon as some of these travel bans lift.
Yes, we will.
Thanks, Dick.
Thank.
Well, there you have it, fellas. Dick Diamond from YG Acoustics. Hopefully you learned something. That was a fun interview. We'll do a couple more of those in the coming weeks, months. I've got some other manufacturers and some other guests in the industry that would like to be on. I think Dick really laid out why YG Acoustics is special, and obviously we think so. It's been our primary speaker brand since 2009, so 11 years. All right, please like, subscribe, share, comment below, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.